Hey there guys and gals, my name is Matt. If you guys are new to the channel, welcome to Matty Outdoors. And if you guys have been here for a bit, welcome back. Now, as always, we are talking more backpacking and hiking tips. And today I thought we would talk about some things that you really just should not be doing when you're out there on a backpacking trip. Now, if you guys are new to the channel, pretty much all we talk about here is hiking and backpacking related stuff. You know, we do backpacking gear reviews and lots of tips and tricks and showcase some epic backpacking trips in the gorgeous Canadian Rockies. So if that sounds like something that interests you, maybe consider clicking on the subscribe button over here. It really helps out the channel. In today's video, we are talking 6. Yes, that's right. I said 6, not 5. We are going with 6 things that you should not be doing out there when you're on a backpacking trip. Now, the first tip that we're going to talk about today actually has to do with a little bit of pre-trip planning when it comes to planning out your backpacking trip. You know, you've got your map and you've plotted out your epic route that you want to go on. Now, obviously, you're going to know the land designation that you're hiking in, you know, be it a national park or up here in Canada, you know, we have provincial parks or like state parks down in the United States. So you want to book an epic 4-day backpacking trip in Banff National Park, you've got to book permits. You've got to book designated campsites for each night that you're going to be staying out there on trail. So when you book your permit, you've guaranteed yourself a tent pad at that site on that specific day. You've got access to the many amenities out there. Usually there's a bear hang, there's usually some picnic tables, you know, you've got a nice spot to sit and eat your lunch or eat your dinner. Do not be one of these people that just decides to head out there in the middle of the, you know, the gorgeous Canadian backcountry in spots like Jasper and Banff without booking permits. Don't be that guy or that gal, you know, just get your permits if you're going to be out there in areas that require them. The second tip we're going to talk about today has to do with our vehicle. Now, when I'm at the trailhead and I'm just getting ready to lock up my vehicle and head down the trail, one thing I do is I do a quick scan over of, you know, the front of my vehicle, and then I go into the back seat and I'm just looking for, you know, like food wrappers and, you know, an empty pop can or anything like that. Anything that's got a scent in it that, you know, could possibly attract animals to my vehicle. I've come off trail and come across somebody's vehicle that has clearly been torn into by a bear that's going in there to try and get something that's attracted to them to the inside of this vehicle. And you've got, you know, cars and vans and trucks with door handles ripped off and, you know, bent metal everywhere and inside that looks like the Tasmanian devil hit it. And it's not just bears you got to worry about, you know, you don't want mice getting in your vehicle and that kind of stuff too. So just making sure you've got any kind of food related and food scented items out of your vehicle. The third one we're going to talk about today has to do with campsite selection when you're out there on trail. These are the 3 most common mistakes that I see people make when it comes to picking a campsite. The first one being setting up your campsite an adequate distance from a water source. Now, I know a lot of people like getting that epic Instagram shot, you know, with your tent right on the edge of a lake or your tent set up right on the edge of a river. And all this looks really sweet in Instagram photos. It's kind of a piss poor practice when we're out there in the backcountry. As a rule of thumb, you generally want to be at least 100 feet away from a water source. The second big mistake people make when it comes to campsite selection is not checking your campsite for widowmakers. You want to look up and you want to make sure that there are no, you know, half fallen down trees or branches that have snapped off and are kind of, you know, caught up a little bit higher. We call these widowmakers because they can come down, and every year it seems there's, you know, it seems like there's more and more stories of, you know, just a tree coming down and squishing somebody in their tent, or, you know, a tree coming down and squishing someone in their hammock. Pretty terrible consequences for something that is really, really easy to mitigate. You know, just make sure when you get to camp, check for widowmakers before you set up your shelter. And the third big mistake people make when it comes to campsite selection is not checking for spots where rain could pool when it comes to setting up their tent, or even this could affect someone camping in a hammock. You know, last thing you want to do is be stepping out of your hammock into a puddle of water that you decided to hang your hammock right over top of. The easiest way to mitigate this is just making sure that you're not setting up your tent in a little low spot or a dip. And I have seen so many people over the years set up their tent in a low spot like that, and they wake up and things are floating inside their tent. The fourth one we're going to talk about today has to do with gathering firewood, and is just simply not letting yourself get lazy, and do not cut down and burn live trees. I know in a lot of areas up here in the Canadian Rockies, it's become a huge issue as a lot of these areas become more and more popular and see more and more traffic. There's just more and more people using up, you know, what's able to be collected close by to campsites in terms of dry wood. Instead of, say, only going 2-3 minutes walk from your campsite, you might have to go a 15 to 20 minute walk from your campsite to be able to find dry wood to bring it back to your site. If this is something that you're not willing to do and there is no available dry wood around your campsite, Please don't be a dick, and please don't be burning live trees. The fifth one that we're going to talk about today has to do with your sleeping bag or your quilt, and that is not leaving your sleeping bag or quilt in your backpack and in its stuff sack until you go to bed. What you want to do as soon as you get to camp and you get your shelter set up, you know, you get your air pad set up or you get your hammock up and your tarp over top of it, you want to get your top quilt or your sleeping bag or, you know, whatever you're using for insulation to keep yourself warm at night. You want to get that out and you want to let that loft up. The more loft your sleeping bag or quilt is able to attain, the more warm air it's going to trap within those fibers, and that's what helps keep you warm at night. I've seen a lot of people go to bed at night and they struggle to get warm right away because, you know, they pull their sleeping bag out of the stuff sack right as they go to bed, and, you know, it takes a little bit of time for that down to loft up, and so people tend to be cold as soon as they climb into bed, and a great way to avoid that is just letting your sleeping bag loft up. At the start of this video, I told you guys we were doing 6 tips, and I did not lie. The 6th one that we're going to talk about has to do with food storage at night. Now, I know this one is probably going to seem like a no-brainer because we're going to talk about hanging your food at night and not keeping food inside your shelter when you're going to bed at night. Some people like to keep food inside their shelter for whatever various reasons that they have. Almost every single person I know that has done this has had a mouse or some kind of rodent get into their tent, either through chewing a hole in it or, you know, getting into the side of a pack by chewing a hole in their pack, or even chewing a hole through somebody's sleeping bag, you know, to get to a granola bar or a package of Skittles or, you know, a bag of M&Ms or whatever they had in their bag. Whatever it is you're doing to store your food at night, just don't keep food-scented items inside your shelter. It's very, very irresponsible. Now, as we rolled through these tips, if you guys are looking for any more, you know, backpacking and hiking tips and tricks, I've got an entire playlist on backpacking and hiking tips and tricks, and I'll fire that right here for you. So when you're done with this video, find one in that playlist and check it out. As always, guys, I'm Matty. Thank you so dang much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.